Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Biblio Fitness. Hope everyone's had a great weekend. Made amazing gains. You know, the usual, of course. Um, I've been on a couple of days hiatus. It was like 4 days, not because I was lazy or anything. It's because I was finishing the chapter on Beyond Good and Evil of Morality, right? Which is what I've been talking about recently, and I finally finished it like 10 minutes ago. Um, and I just wanted to talk about it. And before we go on, your boy, yours truly, has officially reached the 180-pound club. It took 4 years. It's an amazing ride. I'll probably make a bit about that as well. Probably subsequent, just to get away from all the philosophy, even though I love philosophy and history. But still, it's great. I'm still kind of a skinny bitch, but it's all relative at the end of the day. I actually need to start calling myself a skinny bitch. This is literally the heaviest I've ever been. The biggest I've ever been. And I finally hit, I think I'm like a 181 and a half, 181, 182. And the reason that there's a discrepancy is because today I did a grocery shopping at Publix. And I saw the weight thing, the scale. And when I walked in, I'm like, when I walk out, I'm going to weigh myself. And so when I put in the groceries down and my phone and stuff, to get rid of the excess weight, like in my head, there was like that like split second of trepidation of like, not even trepidation, it's just like, dude, I better not still be in the fucking 170. It's like, I better not. Because there has been way too many physiological changes for me to be still in the 170s. I would have been really mad. But I'm at like the dial went to like 181, 182, which was like sitting halfway, and I was just sort of like so much hard work to get to there, and so much more work to be done. It's quite amazing. Um, but aside from that, enough to be my own horn. But it's been a very interesting chapter reading about morality and reading about the herd morality and reading, these are very controversial topics, and these are very controversial ways of viewing things and very controversial convictions one places upon oneself once you get beyond the pale of morality, because morality for the past thousands of years have been been underlined, like has been basically underlined been built from the same foundation, right? Built from the foundation of the good of the people, the good of the mob, the good of man. To be good is to be agreeable, right? And to be bad is to, not is to be disagreeable, to de-alienate, diverge oneself from the herd, diverge oneself from the community at large. And that's something that's been prevalent across all society, and we've all been brainwashed that same way. And I still catch myself thinking that way a lot of time, because we've been taught from very early age that to think for oneself before thinking of others is a trait of narcissism, is a trait of Machiavellianism. Like, I've always considered to think that Machiavelli was the truest of all political thinkers, but then when someone calls you Machiavellian, it comes in with these negative connotations from a societal perspective, even though Machiavelli is really just calling things how it is and how you have to act without the blurring and the fog of morality, the fog of good and evil, and how superfluous these concepts themselves are, these words. And I continue to agree further, and I continue to understand and grasp it on a far deeper level, just because, like, I read history. I read my military history from a very early age, and it was that disconnection was always very apparent to me, but I just didn't know, until I started reading this magnificent man Nietzsche, that what we preach and what we exhort as good qualities, as qualities that will progress us towards this new age, is qualities that will never are not the qualities that you have, they are not the requisite qualities to attain true power, right? It seems to me that from the very beginning of my life, I've always noticed that the only people that really care about these things are poor people, or the peasantry, the plebeian class. We're the only ones that seem to lose sleep over this. I feel like one of the most stupid notions ever is that famous quote of, "Oh, the pen is mightier than the sword." Bullshit. Bullshit, really. Um, that is never the case, because at the end of the day, the victors are the ones who write the history books anyway. So no logic in that. But of course, it's the drive, it's the notion, it's this philosophy of the herd, right? Of everyone being agreeable with one another, everyone taking pity for one another, everyone taking the suffering of others onto ourselves, to care more for the troubles and woes of our neighbors than for our very own, right? To keep a community together. From a survival perspective, from a biological perspective, it does make sense, right? It's these notions and these concepts which allowed us to come together and not kill one another. But it eliminates the reality of the situation, right? It eliminates the realities of hierarchy. It eliminates the reality of talent and gifts and disparity between man and man, as Nietzsche said. And he really drives the point home that a lot of the things that we consider to be true are self-preservative measures. So they're no different from instincts. And, he's really great at really tying in that there is no separation of reason from the instincts and the instincts from reason. They both come from you. They come from your own biases and your own presuppositions and your own cultural norms and provincials. You know what I'm saying? That's why there's different moralities. That's why there is no true reality. I mean, there's no absolute truth, right? There's no truth that can encompass everyone, because everyone is subjective. Everyone goes through their own experiences, goes through their own circumstances, and we all have our own behaviors, we all have our own personalities. And to have these over-encompassing moralities, these herd moralities like Christianity, they're foolish and they're stupid, and he calls it prudence and stupidity. To think that you can have a morality that can solve everybody. He continuously attacks this in very, very amazing ways. And how, it is difficult to separate oneself from the concepts of good and evil, right? It's one thing to read about it, to know, to be aware, but it's another thing to get beyond it, because we are ideological creatures. We are victims. Well, not victims, but we are constructs. We are manifestations of our environment. We are not a thing in itself. We are not separated from everything. It's just not possible, right? And that's what he attacks the whole concept of free will, of an I in the will, and things like nature. And I'm not nowhere near qualified to expound upon it too much. But he does eloquently display that, us really, and I feel like, and I was talking about this, I put it on my Instagram story. I feel like this, divergence of instincts for reason, right? That's what this whole thing is all about, right? That our instincts are faulty. Nature is faulty. Nature is error, right? We live in error. It's the Christian notion, for example, that because of original sin, we are naturally evil, stupid creatures that have lost our way. And our natural way is in the Garden of Eden, of bliss and ignorance and not knowing any suffering and things of that nature. That is what we want to be. So they took the concept of Plato, right? Plato's whole argument is not only reason is going to lead us to good, but our instinct wants to drive us to good. Something in us wants to drive us towards this good for the good of everybody. Striving for this truth, this God. And Christianity obviously took it to a whole another level, saying that we can never find the truth on our own because we are a creature in error. And I feel like the 21st century is really the epitome and the logical conclusion of allowing reason to run rampant. Because we have so demonized and villainized nature and the instincts and the things that make us animals, to the point where we don't trust ourselves anymore, right? We don't trust nature. This whole transgenderism and all these furries and stuff like that. I think these are delusions, in my opinion. I don't think these are real. And I really do believe they are symptoms of the decaying and the era of the last man, to use Nietzschean vocabulary, right? It's this divergence. It's this running away from our instincts and realizing our instincts are bad. Like the whole point in this striving the progress of civilization is to separate ourselves from our nature, because our nature is seen as terrible. That the progress of man is for everybody to be equal, an equality, a democracy, a unity, a utilitarian future, right? The ideal man is a man of the community, right? A man that is content to be the same as everybody else. That is the future man, a mediocre man. Nietzsche just, drops the bombs and calls it what it is, no striving of progress, no striving of individuality, because we can't have that, because that is part of our nature, and I feel like that is what's going on in modern society to the 9,000 degree, right? The emasculization of man can be attributed to that sort of democratic utilitarian notion, right? Because it is in our instincts as men to be tyrannical, to exert, to acquire and exert and show force, and to show conquer, to show will, to show strength, to conquer and to grab things, and to be ambitious and to be proudful. These are all aspects that are villainized, and I'm not the first person, I'm not going to be the last person to make these distinctions. But it's becoming more apparent to me that this is what happens when the herd becomes the fucking ideal. When the sufferers become the ideal, right? And that's what happened with the Christian morality, what Nietzsche calls a herd morality, the European morality of the herd, of the gregarious instinct, right? Is that the things that make us individuals, the things that make us want to be better than everybody else, are villainized. We're not supposed to strive for more than what we got. We have to be content. We can't be proudful, because pride comes before the fall. But if it wasn't for pride, then we wouldn't want to get up in the morning and do things. That would be. We can't be greedy. We have to be content with our lot in life. These are all notions that Christian. That's what I'm saying. I've said this before. A lot of rulers turned to Christianity because they saw what it was fucking espousing, and they're like, wow, this is a great way to keep the peasants in line. And I've read history so much that I really have I made that conclusion from a very early age, that the only people who seem to care about these things are the poor. The rich don't give a fuck about this, because it's not real. It's not real. It's delusional. It's antithetical to the world. It's anti-nature. Nature being seen as an error for so long that we have transgenderism, right? That we have this narcissistic arrogance in us now, that we feel that we are smarter than nature itself, right? That nature, when it provided us with a set of testicles and a penis or a vagina, nature did that in error. It was an error. It was a mistake. Nature doesn't know what the fuck it's doing, but I know. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I was born a male, but nature's wrong. I'm actually a female. I'm like, what? And I feel like it is really a symptom, and it's something that was prophesied by Nietzsche, that is, what happens when you just go down this path, of trying to separate oneself from the world as much as possible. And now we have these notions and these social justice warriors that everybody has to come together, and we all have to help one another. We have to care for one another. We have to care about other people's fucking pronouns and things like that. But in this progress towards equality, there's a whole lot of tyrannizing going on, right? There's a whole lot of exclusion in the name of inclusion. It is the same practices that have been going on for millennia, right? It's the same way that Christianity became the moral epoch. I mean, not the moral epoch, but the moral standard, right? And to be the moral standard of good and justice and all these things, it had to commit the most anti-moral acts. It had to commit atrocities untold, I've talked about this many times, right? It's very funny. It's very crucial to understand how these contradictions are so innately necessary in all these religions and philosophy, but that's something that is innately required in us as well. But as Nietzsche calls free spirits, these new philosophers, we don't look at our instincts as a thing in error. We don't look at our passions and our emotions and the thing that makes us go with fear. because that's what religion is, right? So you look at fear. You have fear, you're scared of yourself. You look at yourself in terror, you're like, you know, you don't know what you're up to. You're scared of your anger, you're scared of your passions, you're scared of this, you're scared of that, because you're scared of yourself, and you need to get the light of God is the only thing that's going to save you. It's living on that fear. And to not be fearful, you know, of being tyrannical. It's not a fear to want to conquer. Not a fear to know that you are better than the people around you, and you want to prove that in whatever way you see fit. You know, and I'm not obviously saying to be a fucking complete asshole and kill people. You know, that is a part of nature, but that's definitely a question that I haven't really been able to solve. Is that a justification for murder? But that's a whole another topic in itself, is it not? But it really is becoming more prevalent how prophetical this man was. How morality from the very beginning was a morality, right? It was a morality to wipe away the individual, to wipe away ambition, to wipe away passion, to wipe away pride, even though that's exactly the same thing that Christians show, right? You know, in their humility, they show pride. In their inclusion, they're like, oh, we're the chosen ones. It's these antithetical contradictions that Nietzsche says has really drawn interest to Christianity, because people are like, how the fuck can you believe this stuff? It's so contradictory. How are you keeping this intact without losing your fucking mind? Like, you have to be the most anti-rational person in order to believe this bullshit. And that's why I don't understand the people that believe in Christianity. And even Christianity itself has degenerated along with man. You know, how many people, I know people that turn to God only when things are going wrong. Right? We all know those people. We all know those people that are straight hedonists. And God was nowhere to be found. But when, you know, they get a bad breakup, or they lost their jobs, or a sensation that they did not want becomes prevalent in their life, now they find God. But then that becomes a drug. It's a coping mechanism. I'm pretty sure I fucking said this a million times, but you know, whatever. It's something that needs to be said continuously. And I know that I'm probably gonna catch a lot of shit, you know, when this channel garners more attention with what I'm saying. But it's so true, bro. And I at the end of the day, this new philosophy that Nietzsche really wants to espouse is not for the many, because it's not supposed to be, right? To really pull away these moral valuations is a destruction of one's reality set here too, right? You know what I'm saying? Because it is these noble lies that have allowed us to cope with the world, right? Is, you know, and Nietzsche even says that you have to have convictions. You can't walk around without convictions. You can't walk around with things that you have to believe to be true. But I feel like there is a distinction of believing to be true and just like really trying hard to like negate the reality of the world. And another thing, knowing that these are concepts that you created, but you know damn well that they're not real. They're only used for your benefit, but at least there is that transparency between yourself, right? And to yourself, to your own subconscious, that, you know, you're not lying to yourself because you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You're putting on these acts. You're putting on this mask in order to go around and to mingle with the people. You know, because even the message that is espoused by Nietzsche is not something that can be espoused now. You know, the herd morality is coming even more and more and more and more grip on the world. You know, God may have been left in the dust, but the same concepts are still there, right? The herd, the democracy, the one for all, and the equality of all, and no distinction, and there is no privileges, there is no special rights. This constant anti-nature is continuously pervasive across all society. You know, the moral hierarchy is, you know, humility and pity and modesty. And stuff like that. But these are not the moralities that are going to take you to the echelons of power. But then, you know, power is seen as a bad thing, right? To chase power is a bad thing. You know, everything is a fucking patriarchy now. and everything is power, and if you chase power, you're part of the patriarchy, you're a fucking terrible person, why can't you be like everybody else? That's literally what is espoused now, right? To be an individual is bad. You know, that's why we have identity politics. That's why we have nationalism. That's why we have all these things to rob the individual of what makes him unique. It's very astounding how day by day my view on the world continuously changes, and it's very difficult to not place yourself in that sort of pessimism where you completely give up. But to take on the pessimism in a way that Nietzsche says to be affirming of life, right? To just know, hey, look, this is just the way the world is. And I feel like this is the way the world is too. I feel like, you know, and at the very end of that chapter, Nietzsche says that the biggest instinct that has prevailed throughout all our history is the trait of obedience. The trait to obey. Thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that. Thou shalt. You know, that's what he said. Thou shalt. Like the need to be commanded is more required than the commanding itself. That we need to find a way to obey, whether it's teacher, whether it's class, whether it's prejudice, whether it's law and justice and constitution and God and all these other things. There's something we have to obey willingly. Something that makes us obey. It's astounding because that's why, you know, Christianity is seen as a slave morality, right? Is to obey these notions, is to rid oneself. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, no one in the modern world is actually Christian. It's really fucking hilarious when you see Jews who make a whole lot of money. I mean, I don't know enough about Judaism, but I don't think they're really Jews either. I feel like a lot of people place these labels upon themselves so they can sleep better at night. And it's one of the most pathetic lies, and that's why I say that even religion has degenerated along with man. Religion is just a coping mechanism at this point. You know, you see these fucking celebrities talking about God or some shit, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? You probably fuck kids or something. You know, like I'm probably overgeneralizing it, but you know, let's be honest here. And I love how Nietzsche is the first person I've read that really looks at nature not as a bad thing, but as necessary, right? As, you know, not something to villainize, but something to be proud of. And that's why I've always found it extremely fascinating the way Nietzsche was with Greek gods, right? Greek gods were not perfect. They're not like in the notion of God in the Bible when Jesus is a perfect human being free of sin. No, bro. Zeus was out fornicating and having kids with a whole bunch of different women and goddesses and half goddesses and fucking mythological creatures and shit. You know, Poseidon trying to rape a Medusa in a fucking temple. That's pretty hardcore, bro. That's pretty hardcore. You know, Hades being greedy fucker stealing this chick and dragging her down to hell and stuff like that. Like these very human emotions, it's very human flaws. Part of gods. It was their gods. And a reason that they put them as their gods is because we were seen as the best. We were seen as the epitome, even with our flaws. We are great. And that's what we should be. Like, understand, not look at these instincts of dominance and stuff like that as a bad thing. That's something that we have to extricate away from our souls, away from our beings, which is impossible, but to embrace it and to live with it and to mesh it all together. The instinct and the reason, you know, to follow the instincts but have reason in there to help steer the course. That's how it should be. It's amazing. It is amazing, and I've always really had a disdain for how we view things, and you know, this whole pity shit. This is why, you know, communities and governments fall, right? And at the end of the day, you know, he calls it even with leaders having to use excuses of, you know, we're doing it for the betterment of the people, we're doing it for the people, we're doing it for the world, we're doing it for God, we're doing it for the Constitution. Even leaders themselves have to pretend that they're obeying something even higher than themselves. And that's what's going on right now. And you see the blatant corruption in our government, and they all say that it's for the people. Oh, we're doing it for democracy. We're doing it for freedom. We're doing it for love. And all these fucking banners of the herd, right? And equality for all, and freedom, and justice, and truth, and it's bullshit. Everyone sees it, and everyone knows it. And it's bullshit. Um, it's astounding. And I really do love how this man is able to explain it in a very profound way. You really can't refute too much of it. I mean, I feel like I really have akin to him because I feel like I've said this many times. I feel like he was right. Like he's stating the obvious. But the reason that it's still held underground is because most people can't realize that. Not that they can't, they don't want to. That these religions and these philosophies and these moralities and these valuations are just self-preservative measures, a way to make the world more bearable, a way to get away from nature. And I love how Nietzsche says that the person is more into the idealization, whether it be through art, whether it be through music, whether it be through literature, the more that they're trying to idealize, trying to find an ideal, perfect form of the world, the more sour they are against the world, the more disillusioned they've become, the more they don't want to accept hierarchy, more they don't want to accept the things that I've said before. And it's just very difficult to refute these sort of logics, right? Because you're going beyond the facade of morality, and that's all it is a facade. At the end of the day, what we want to do is attain power and attain fame, and that's what we want to do. You know, a lot of people say we're doing it for God, we're doing it for this, we're doing it for the right thing, and are you really? And he goes on to even talk about how, even God's morality is not even to love one's neighbor, but to fear one's neighbor. It is fear, not love, that keeps us all together. Right? And these notions of pity and caring for one another are just secondary things. What is really important is fear. That is the underlying emotion. Fear of the individual. Fear of the drives that make a person superior to the herd, an independent will, an independent spirit, and a person that does not need people, a man that can be by himself, a man that can think for himself. These things are seen as evil, right? To be proudful, to be ambitious. The things I've said before are seen as evil because they go against the herd. It is that fear that someone's going to be better than them. And if someone gets away from the community, it shatters the belief in their own morality. It shatters their own beliefs. So they go against that as a self-preservative measure to keep it all in place. So much to fucking talk about. I can't believe it's already been this long, actually. But I can't wait to finish Beyond Good and Evil, because then to get past that morality and to create your own valuations, like how do you do it, right? Like, what do you do? What do you use? And I feel like that's what he talks about, these untracked waters. Like once you really dissolve and abolish these moral evaluations that you never even knew were there, it's really up to you to decide what you want to be your values. What do you want? What do you care for? What do you think is right or wrong? And it should be up to you, and that should be up to your mama, and that should be up to your community, and that should be up to your friends, because at the end of the day, the only person that's going to live with you is you. It's very interesting how he talks about it's like untracked waters, right? Waters that have never been seen, forests that have never been excavated and never been tracked, and these are our responsibility, because at the end of the day, a new man is coming. The new philosopher, the new commander, the man that understands that, realism and relativism as the play, But it is a difficult thing to understand because that, these power plays is what leads to tyranny, is what leads to feudalism, it's what leads to a plethora of things. So how do we get past this? And can we? Because at the end of the day, hierarchy is necessary. But I feel like, are things going to be better once we get rid of the notions of truth? Once we get rid of the fallacies, right? But once you can't hide anymore behind good and evil. Because if people are so fucking stupid, they fall for the same notions over and over again, and then they wonder why they was fucked. Much to talk about, much to shit on. But I don't want to be doing that all the time. But it's just so fucking crazy how obvious this all is. and yet it's not so obvious. It requires a level of subtlety and obviously knowledge. I'm nowhere near the level of Nietzsche. The guy's a fucking genius. The way he's able to really see these things. Like I feel like I'm saying it's obvious because he's saying it so eloquently and he's just saying it so blatantly and without any like fucking abstractions or anything like that. It just, this is what it is, and you're just like, oh shit, this makes so much sense. I feel like that's where I'm coming from. But to separate oneself from this herd morality is the ultimate sin nowadays. What's been the ultimate sin for a very long time, because we need these structures in order to keep playing the game, right? We need to follow these rules in order to play the game, and that's how they fuck you, right? That's how they trap you. You think you're out of the game, but you're not. It's like what I said about Andrew Tate. Like, how do you say that you're escaping the matrix if you're still following the same rules? Doesn't make any sense. You're making money off webcam girls, but yet you want men to be independent, but yet you're monetizing on the insecurities of the modern man. There's a blatant contradiction there, right? You say you want to escape the matrix and fight those in power, but you chase money just as they do. You're the same ambitions, you have the same drives, and what makes you any different from them? Because you are espousing these things and they're not. It's very I'm just seeing things very, very differently. I'm even philosophizing fucking animes and shit now, which is pretty crazy. I was shitting on Naruto the other day because I'm just like, Naruto really is the epitome of herd morality put on an anime, right? That through love and compassion and kindness and understanding, you can change the ways of the villain. The villain can see the light. The villain can see the truth and the error of his ways and realize that his evilness will never triumph the good. It's so fucking cookie cutter. It makes me like it even less, to be quite honest with you. I think it's a great anime, but the fact that I'm looking at it the way I am now makes me never want to watch it again. The way I saw it and the way I remember it, I'm just like, I don't want to do that. It's so corny. It's very interesting. I love Nietzsche, and I love how just in a few pages he can really change how you view everything, and see the truth, and to have a different relationship with truth than most as well. To realize that truth is the black pill. That too much truth and you'll want to kill yourself. Which is why we need these convictions to kind of keep in the game and to keep us moving, to keep us going, to keep us playing. Because if we knew the whole truth of everything, we wouldn't want to play. We would. What's the fucking point? I might as well kill myself. What the hell am I here for? But we shall continue on. I think the next chapter is We Scholars. So can't wait to see how that goes. It's been a great ride. I want to go ahead and read Twilight of the Gods and the Antichrist after this one, and then I'm probably going to read Crime and Punishment. I really want to see how I'm going to look at Dostoevsky now with this new way of thinking. I feel like this is my natural mode of thinking. I feel like I've always looked at the world the way I wasn't supposed to, according to people, right? So that's why I've always felt like an attraction to a man like Nietzsche and his philosophy, and I'm really glad I started reading it. I'm really glad, and I'll probably read Will to Power eventually again. At some point, I don't know when, but soon. I hope. I do want to read The Prince. Also, I haven't read The Prince. I really do want to. The Prince is heavily big influence on Nietzsche's philosophy, so it'll be great to understand more about it. Well, aside from that, that'll be all for today. I hope you all have a great day. I hope you all make amazing gains. I hope you get some literature, some reading done. Gotta keep the mind moving, because if you ain't using it, you won't fucking lose it. A lot of us work these sedentary jobs and these office jobs and these brain dead jobs where you can do the same thing over and over again, which is the job that I have at this point in time. And the only reason that I haven't gone completely insane or become an alcoholic is because I read and because I do these things and I find joy in that. But it keeps the mind moving. It keeps me, having a completely, digest and wrap my head around all these concepts and ideas, which is keeping me very sharp. I'm at my sharpest ever, really. So, I love you all. Be safe, and until next time, peace.